First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and blessings to the brothers pushing His truth all around the world. Today, I want to get on topic about this oncoming World War III, because it's going to be here more sooner than later. You know, as most international wars and world wars and things of that nature usually come about that way. You know, you get sideswiped by it. It's not something anyone can truly prepare for, even though the nations are preparing as far as their military goes. But as individuals, you know, the best thing to do is, if you're an Israelite, Black, Hispanic, or Native American, is just to be aware of what's going on. You know, primarily through scripture, and just know that everything is prophecy. Everything that's unfolding, having to do with World War III, is prophecy. And you know, if you do what you need to do, right, then you'll be able to keep your head in that day. You know, you won't lose your shit. You know, Lord willing. I want to start with Revelations 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. See that? So it says the third woe, which woe means destruction. You know, the second destruction is past. That's World War II. You know, which you know, is in a lot of people's memory still through their great grandparents and grandparents. And behold, the third woe, or the third World War, cometh quickly. So even though it seems as though in the last 20-30 years it's just been dragging along, you know, one day it's just gonna fucking be here. You know, the shit's gonna pop off. You know, and it's gonna start over there in the so-called Middle East, but you know, the grand finale is gonna be here in Babylon. You know, when so-called America gets turned into a lake of fire via the nuclear missiles. All right.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Mohsin Mughal. It was a summit meant to hammer out sticking points between three countries leading the peace efforts in Syria. After all was said and done, differences remain between the presidents of Turkey, Russia and Iran. But that didn't overshadow the agreements they shared, including facilitating the return of refugees and, crucially, the setting up of a constitutional committee to determine Syria's political future.
All right. Now this is a huge deal because Turkey is this guy right here, leader of Turkey. Turkey is so-called America's ally. All right. So Turkey, though they should have been, you know, trying to figure out how to solve Syria's problems, or the dilemma in Syria, with the United States, which is their ally, they actually turned their head, you know, away from the United States, and went and had a meeting with the leaders of Russia and Iran instead. You know, so this is definitely a big time prophecy, you know, playing out. And even though, like the man said, you know, not a lot was solved, well, they ain't got to solve anything right now. The point is that for the first time, you know, Turkey is reaching out to Iran and Russia, and these three people just so happen to be major players in prophecy concerning World War III. You know, it was a summit meant to hammer out sticking points between Turkey, Iran, and Syria, leading peace efforts in Syria. And, well, you know, if Turkey is not dealing with the United States as far as these efforts go, and dealing with the enemies of the United States instead, Iran and Russia, then you can only conclude that Turkey, you know, is tired of having America as a so-called ally. Like, they're tired of America's shit. And, you know, their reliance on America has brought nothing but war to their country. Just like when any nation depends on this so-called white man, Esau, Edom, or Babylon the Great, like any nation who depends on them for anything or introduces them into their country or accepts their philosophies or democracy, that wine, they get fucked up. They get the shit end of the stick. So shit's gonna start rolling downhill, and it's gonna start with things like this, man. These three people meeting up, and we find it in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, in the Holy Scriptures. In Ezekiel 38:1, it says, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, or Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them." All right. So in the scriptures, in the ancient days, Gog in the land of Magog was a Japhetic people, right? Descendants of Japhet, right? But what you have nowadays is you had the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, conquer them and take over those lands. So who you have dwelling there today, right, is who you would call Russia or the Russians, right? And Vladimir Putin is the leader of the Russians. So when you're referencing Gog, the land of Magog, in prophecy, we're speaking about the Russians, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against them, right? And this isn't the only time in the scriptures that the Most High and His Son Yahweh Bashem Yahushai tells Israel, the prophets of the Lord, right, the Israelite men, to prophesy against Esau, Edom, right, the so-called white man. And this is just another way of saying that, right? It also says prophesy, against Greece, Mount Seir, Esau, Edom. It uses all these different titles or locations. 3, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee. So thus saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. 4, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws and will bring thee forth. All right. So the reason the Lord is saying I will turn thee back, right, to present day Russia, is because during the sanctions that were put on Russia during the 80s, the so-called Cold War, right, it really damaged their military as well as their economy. So they had to take a few steps back, even though at that time they were trying to gain power. So the Lord said, I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaw, just like when you like a ring inside in the nose of a bull, and then they tie a rope to that ring and pull on it, right, to bring that stubborn animal forward. That's what he's talking about, putting hooks into thy jaws. He's speaking parabolically. And I will bring thee forth, and all thine army. So Russia is a big time, huge player in the Battle of Armageddon, in World War III. And all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, and that's that new shit we got, like just things that, a lot of people can't even comprehend. You got exoskeletons now that increase the strength and speed of soldiers. You also got these cloaks of so-called invisibility or camouflage, which make soldiers just impossible to see, and all kinds of stealth weapons or stealth vehicles, stealth aircraft, along with weapons dealing with, you name it, electricity, sound waves, lasers, you name it, they got it all now. Even a great company with bucklers and shields all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them. And look, Persia right here, right? That's modern day Iran. You know, when you talk to an Iranian, they still will refer to themselves as Persia or Persians. Ethiopia and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. All right. So Russia, being big time player, you know, he's like the bigger dude over there. He's gonna gather around all these smaller nations or nations that are almost to their level, you know, to face the beast. You know what I'm saying? Like that's Babylon, so-called America, and whoever is allies with them at the time. You know, because a lot of allies are going to be ditching them. Ezekiel 38:6. Gomer, and here's the reference to Turkey. This is Turkey right here, right? The land of Turkey. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarma of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. All right, Ezekiel 38:7. This is kind of the point to that video where Turkey, you know, they were seeking out the help of Iran, who is Persia, and Russia, who is Gog in the land of Magog. Ezekiel 38:7. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Right? And that's exactly what we have here. You know, Putin, right? Gog in the land of Magog, he's the ones with the hella nukes, and Iran is trying to get there with the nukes. You know, that's also in the news a whole bunch, is the Iran nuclear deal, right? And Turkey, being a smaller guy, you know, instead of keep bending over for Babylon, the so-called white man Esau Edom, he said, fuck that, you know, and he's going to go over to Gog, right, in the land of Magog, and over to Persia, right? And we just read in Ezekiel 38, this little meeting right here is pretty much, you could call it like the initialization of that prophecy, you know, because this is just their first step, even though they really didn't get anything resolved, right? At least they're communicating at this point, you know, and when push comes to shove, you know, you already got these guys shaking hands, so they're going to take it from there. In Obadiah 1:7, it says, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee, which is Turkey, right? Gomer, have deceived thee. All right. So instead of talking to the U.S., who is their ally, about their issues, they went to the enemy and prevailed against thee. And that's exactly what's going to happen when they go to war against Babylon. They're going to prevail against Babylon. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him.
Но считать-то не умеют. Умеют наверняка. Пусть посчитают дальность и скорость наших перспективных систем оружия. Мы просим только об этом. Пусть сначала посчитают, а уже только после этого принимают.
Right? So this was a response of Putin not but one day ago. All right? Russian President Vladimir Putin took a swipe at America's destructive politics of exceptionalism, and during his annual speech to Parliament in Moscow on Wednesday, Russia will respond to any deployment of intermediate range nuclear weapons in Europe by targeting not only the countries where those missiles are stationed, but the United States itself. All right, so Russia's not playing any games, and Putin's not playing any games. They, above all the other heathen nations, have had enough of Babylon's bullshit, right? And what happened was the United States, right, wants to strategically place, because of all the tension and turmoil that's going on overseas in Europe, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. They want to place missiles within the borders of their allies throughout Europe. But the range of those missiles have Russia, right? So Russia is within the range of those missiles, and because of that, Putin, has said that they pose additional serious threats to our country, and in order for America, right, Babylon, to get the picture, he was saying that we have equipment and we have missiles and we have countermeasures that are just as able, right, and just as dangerous to to form a rebuttal, to basically fire back. All right, so they're not even going to let it. Putin, he was saying that they weren't even going to let it get to the point to where America can even set these missiles up and use them. As soon as they show up in Europe, it's on site. Because why would he let them not only move them in, but then set them up as well? As soon as word gets out that the missiles are anywhere near Europe and within range of Russia, he's going to attack those sites regardless of what European country they're in, and I guarantee you he's going to try his best to attack the United States mainland as well. And that was his threat. In Habakkuk 2 and 5 it says, yeah, also, because he transgresseth by wine, and his thoughts, his philosophies, the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, that's his wine, all right? He thinks that the words that he says are true, and he follows them, just like Trump always saying that America's going to win. They're going to be doing so much winning. You're going to get tired of winning. He wholeheartedly believes that shit. All right? He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death. And that's the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, specifically Esau out of so-called America, Babylon. And all these countries are coming to a realization of the ways of Babylon, right? Which are as death, right? And his desire as hell. Because ever since Babylon's been established, it's done nothing but bring death to the entire planet. And cannot be satisfied, but gathered unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And that's what this damn devil thinks that he has a right to. He's just bugged out of his mind, but he thinks he has a right to all nations and all people. And here you have Vladimir Putin, Russia's leader, saying, hell no, it ain't like that no more, And here's the Iran foreign minister talking about, the fake Jews in Israel and Babylon, so-called America, their leaders, talking about engaging Iran in a war. And this is his response. It says that Iranian foreign minister, right, and Iran is Persia, Mohammad Javad Zarif, has warned the U.S. and its allies that it would be suicidal to start a war with Iran, accusing Washington of having a pathological obsession with his country. And that's the so-called white man. That's Esau Edom, and he's absolutely right. These motherfuckers are sociopaths. They're psychopaths, above other things. But, that's definitely true, man. There's something not right, inherently fucked up about these so-called white people, Esau Edom,
But it's suicidal to engage in a war with Iran. Iran is different from other countries. You see, the United States is used to dealing with countries that rely on outside as their source of legitimacy, as their source of strength. It is our people who are the source of our strength.
That was part of NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel's exclusive interview with Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif on the sidelines of the 2019 Munich Security Conference in Germany. And Richard joins us now live from Munich. Richard, what more did he tell you?
So we sat down and discussed a lot of subjects. Iran has taken notice of the increasingly hostile tone that Trump administration officials are talking about when they discuss Iran. They're just wrapped up a conference in Poland that was specifically aimed at gathering international consensus against Iran. At that conference, Vice President Pence, who's due here in Munich, said that Iran is working to carry out another Holocaust. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has talked about gathering support for a policy to either carry out a war or confront Iran, depending on which translation of the Hebrew you use.
All right, so you heard it, that the tribe of Amalek, which is a tribe of Esau, Edom, right, the so-called Jews, the fake Jews that are in the land of Israel today, the imposters, they've been in talks with the United States, in serious talks as to what they're going to do about Iran, because anyone who knows anything knows that Iran, who is Persia, has vowed to wipe Amalek, the so-called Jew, the fake Jew, completely off the face of the earth. There's nothing more they want to do than that. And like their foreign minister said, it would be suicidal, because Persia was one of the original superpowers in the ancient times, in the old world, right? And that's what he said, man. Babylon, the so-called United States, ain't shit. At the end of the day, is an infant, shitting on itself, pissing on itself, puking on itself, compared to Persia, and that's what this so-called white man is. He's just an infant, right? He's a child that thinks he knows something. When you have these older nations who have seen their nation collapse several times over. Persia has rebuilt itself 3 times over. Babylon's not going to survive its first true hit, right? Because there hasn't been an international war against the United States inside of the United States, so their first war, man, that's going to be it. They're going to be one and done. In Joel 3:10 it says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. So even though, if you have this like Babylonian mindset and you feed into the bullshit that the so-called white man says, you're going to believe that countries like China, North Korea, Iran, Turkey, and Russia are weak, when in reality, they're stronger than they let themselves, than they actually show. They're just not proud, or as proud. They are proud, but they're not as proud as the United States, that boasts in their military might and things of that nature. They play with their cards close to the chest. They don't want anybody looking at their cards. And it says it right here, Joel 3:10. Let the weak say I am strong. In Revelation 16:16, it says, and he gathered them together into a place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon. And this is Yahweh Shaphat, or Shaphat, and this is this is the valley of Jehoshaphat, in the Fertile Crescent, in the around the around the so-called Middle East. All right, so that's where it's all going to go down. And the talks between Turkey, Iran, and Russia are going to bring Russia into the Middle East, and then that's where it's going to pop off initially. All right. But you know, one of the main points to like take away from all this is, you know, Esau Edom, the so-called white man, is on a decline, man. He is fucking out of here. He's already dead. He just doesn't even. He's just too stupid to fucking know it, right? And once this World War III gets going, right, it's all downhill from there, man. All gas, no brakes, straight downhill for this so-called white man. And you're already seeing it in the day-to-day news, you know, and also within the reactions of the allies towards the United States. Because not only are their longtime enemies flexing on that ass, but the allies, longtime allies like Turkey and right here Germany, right, they are not feeling this dude at all, man. You know, they understand that the so-called white man, specifically here in Babylon, you know, is the goddamn devil. And here's Pence, you know, receiving awkward silence when he mentions Trump.
And to them and to all of you, I bring greetings from a great champion of freedom and a strong national defense, who has worked with these members of Congress to strengthen America's military might and to strengthen the leadership of the free world. I bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump.
And no one gives a fuck.
Last August,
See that? Before, an American president would have got a standing ovation, you know, via his vice president during some shit like that. You know, but those days are long gone, man. And this is Germany, right? One of the stronger nations economically there is in Europe, you know, if not the strongest. And they don't give two shits about this guy or Trump, right? And this is Isaiah 14 and 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? And the white man is in his heaven, you know. Heaven and hell are physical states here on earth, right? So right now, the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, so-called white people, they're in their heaven. So it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Now, Lucifer means bearer of light or bringer of light. And Esau, Edom, the elites of Esau, Edom, these elite shakers and movers, so-called white men, they actually have some knowledge. They know who the true Hebrew Israelites are. They know who they are. They know that they're Esau, Edom, and they know prophecy, right? Now, it's not the majority of Edomites out there. Your average Joe Sixpack is a dumb fuck and doesn't know shit. But the elites, you know, they know a little something. So that's who it's referring to in this precept. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? And that they weakened Iran, they've weakened Russia, they've weakened Turkey, as well as China, North Korea, and the rest of the enemy nations. Shit, even Japan, who is their ally now, but they even went over there and dropped 2 nukes, right? But that was then, and this is now. Prophecy is starting to speak, and all these nations which were weak before are now saying that they are strong, and they're investing everything that they have into armament, right? And being prepared strategically for a war against this beast, man. You know, specifically Babylon, through NATO and the UN. Isaiah 47 and 1. And this is going to be the result right here, okay? Because it's going to start in the so-called Middle East, in Armageddon, right? The Valley of Jehoshaphat. But the grand finale is going to be here in Babylon, right? This bitch Babylon. Isaiah 47 and 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. So it's the virgin daughter of Babylon, right? Babylon in the reincarnation, right? And it's a virgin daughter because after the establishment of America in so-called 1776, no other nation has brought a full-scaled war, army against army, to the United States versus the United States, you know, heads up. So that's why it's considered a virgin daughter, because it hasn't been penetrated or ran through yet. Sit on the ground. There is no throne. And that's exactly where these Edomites are going to sit. The ones who aren't completely destroyed, right? There's going to be no more throne for these Edomites. O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. And that's how these peon Babylonians, these so-called Americans, and their allies and their supporters across the heathen nations, that's how they view Babylon. Like it's the greatest shit since sliced bread. That's why they follow their philosophies, of technology, homosexuality, military might, so on and so forth. They just think Babylon's the fucking greatest and is going to save the fucking planet, right? But in that day it says, thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate, and these things that we see play throughout our day-to-day in the news, which you have to go online for news. You're not going to find any of this on mainstream media, at least not too much on TV, but if you keep up with geopolitics and international trade, you can see it clear as day that this day is coming, man, sooner and later. With that, I hope this video was edifying. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, and death to America.